For today's review, we're going to be taking a look at set 70505, Temple of Light, containing 565 pieces. The set retailed for $70 and released in 2013. Taking a look at our first minifigures here, we have Lloyd, or the Golden Ninja, here on the left side, and then on the right side we have Sensei Wu. And something that I want to point out about Sensei Wu is the line work down here at the bottom doesn't seem as clean as the one up here, and it is the case on the pictures in Bricklink. You can see the colors down here also seem a little grainy or something like that, but up here they seem super smooth. So that's really interesting to see on this particular figure. Removing their head accessories, you get a better look at their faces, and then rotating these minifigures, you can take a look at the back printing as well. For our next set of minifigures, we have the bad guys of the set. So going from left to right, we have Garmadon, which is the possessed version where the Overlord has taken over his body. Then we have a Stone Army Swordsman, and then a Stone Army Scout. And then removing those headpieces, you can get a better look at each of those faces. And then rotating these minifigures, you can see that the Garmadon body in particular does not have any back torso printing, but the Stone Army men do. And you also get some accessories for the minifigure. So for Sensei Wu, you get a staff. For Garmadon or the Overlord, you get this brick-built staff. And then for the Swordsman, you get one sword. And for the Scout, you get a crossbow. Taking a look at our first build here, we have the Golden Mech. Now the color scheme for this is following gold and white as the main colors. And then there is use of gray and black for mechanical pieces. I would have preferred for those to have been white and gold respectively, but you know, it's not too big of a deal because they are still mechanical pieces, so it kind of works in a way. Now there is the use of tan, which you mainly see in the legs and in the cockpit, and I don't really think it's a big deal that that's included because it kind of blends in with the white and the gold. It doesn't really stand out. It's not a color that stands out, so it just kind of fades into the actual mech itself versus standing out, which is a good thing in my opinion. So before moving on into the actual articulation, I wanted to take a look at this sword. So the sword is a little bit loose in there. It doesn't connect to anything within the actual arm, so that's not too big of a deal though because it sits in there perfectly fine. But because of that, you can switch from this hand to this hand to hold the sword, and the sword is, you know, well done. It's nothing too crazy, super simple, but it gets the job done, right? The only thing that I, you know, kind of get annoyed with, and it's not just the set itself, it's just these pieces, because they are a softer plastic. It's super hard to keep them like perfectly straight, which is a shame, but you know, that's just the nature of this particular plastic, I assume. So I'm not going to fault it for that. So moving that to the side, let's focus on the actual articulation. Starting with the feet. So the feet, you can see there is limitations when going backwards. It just hits this area right here. But there is a lot of motion forward. I don't know what you would use this for, but the motion is there. And then if you want to talk about side to side, there is limitations, as you can see. So that's going this way, and then it's going to be about the same thing going the other way. So nothing too crazy there. No knee type of joint, but that's perfectly fine for the size of this build. There is, you know, movement here at the where the thigh meets the torso essentially. So it's on a ratchet joint, so you can do the full splits here. And I'll do it with both just so that you can get a understanding of that. So that's how it looks with both legs spread out like that. So that's pretty cool. You can rotate this 360. Just be careful of the arm because it does get in the way, but you can do that if you know, want to mess with that. Movement wise, it can go, you know, backwards and forwards, but the only issue is you can't really do it in a straight line because of this piece right here, and essentially this piece right here as well. They just collide right here, so you can't really move this forward or backwards from this position, which sucks. But you know, it's kind of something that they have to decide whether they want the function because these pieces are in the way mainly, or if they want the look. I'm 50-50 here. I like the look, but I also would like that function just because I think it would bring the build a little bit nicer in terms of functionality for playing, right? From there, there's no twist in the torso itself, so you can't, you know, move this back and forth like you can on, for example, the Samurai X mech. So that's kind of a shame. I feel like most mechs should have that for the most part, just because it gives it more playability for the mech. From there, we have the arms. So you can see if you go upwards like this, these bricks collide right here, so there's not much movement there. Down, it's, you know, about yeah, as good as you can get it, right? With a mech, if you move this, you can get a tiny fraction of space there, but not good enough, I guess. From there, you can twist this and move this upwards if you want, so you have him pointing up. So you can do that. So, and then, of course, these are just ball joints, so this is just kind of movement that isn't too restricted, to be honest, and there's not really that many pieces getting in the way, except these getting in the way of going up all the way. So yeah, then you have the hands. They just open and close, nothing crazy. And then you do have some stickers here for added detail. So you have one there, and then the same thing on the other side with one here and one here. And another thing I want to talk about is the side profile. So you can't really get this too straight. This is about as straight as you can get it because of the way it's built. So the torso itself is straight, but you can see that here that the legs are built at an angle in here. They have a little bit of an angle there, so the ratchet joint isn't straight, as you can see here. This would be a straight ratchet joint, and then the actual mech wouldn't be straight, as you can see with the back arching like that. And while we're on the topic though, the back is kind of well done. It's not fully built out, as you can see here. It's not super crazy, right? But this is the only place you see anti-studs, and that's good. I don't really like anti-studs on the back of mechs. They just look weird, but here it's very limited. This side is built out as well. There's not as much, you know, built out, but it just gives it a better finish feel back here versus just all being anti-studs in the back. And from there, we're going to take a look at the cockpit. So first, there is this top piece here. You can see that is printed. It's a very nice piece. I think it looks great for this hat piece area. Big fan of it. Love it. You know, nothing too crazy. Don't like the connections here. I feel like this is too weak. I would have preferred a way better connection than this. At least add 2 more of these on the left and right side here. But, you know, it works, so it's not too big of a deal. Here is the cockpit though. You can see there is these kind of levers in here that you can use as the controls for the mech, and there is space in there as well. You can see there's 4 studs worth of space going width-wise, and then you can have Lloyd, or the Golden Ninja, sit in here, and that is how he looks in the actual mech. So you can see that he looks good in there, and that's sitting down. And you can also stand him up if you kind of lift this up and then just stand him up in there. You can do that if you would like to, but I think him sitting down just looks a little bit better to me than him standing up. So finally, here we have the actual Temple of Light, and just taking a look at the color scheme, we can see that the main colors they're using are this bright red, this brighter tan, and then this darker tan, and then there's a couple more colors in here, such as the white that's used sparingly throughout. Then there is the use of gray up here for this floor, which I don't really understand why that's the case, but it is there, so it's something I have to point out. And then up here they have the darker red with these dish pieces, and then, you know, the accents of gold throughout, which that is perfectly fine. I'm just really questioning the use of gray as that floor piece because it doesn't really make sense with the rest of the color scheme. So for our close-up, we're going to start off with the left side here. Now on this left side, you can see we have a brick built light here on the left, and then we have these printed panels right here in the very back, which are very nice with those dragons on there. Then we have this weapons rack, which is nice, and then on the back of the weapons rack there is a sticker in use for this piece right here, so that is something you have to place. We do have a ladder here that indicates that you can get up to the second floor, which is nice. I always love when they include stuff like that. And then moving our attention to the center here, and if I turn this a little bit, you can see a couple more details. First, we have a bonfire in the middle. That makes sense to me. It just adds a little bit of quote-unquote lighting to the scene. Back here on this pillar, you can see that there is this piece right here. That is a sticker, so that is something you have to put on there. The red doesn't entirely match. There is a slight variation, but it's not something you can tell from far away. In the back here, you do have some big stickers. First here on the left, you can tell right back here on the bottom right, we have Sensei Wu. And I can only assume that one of these other ones is the first first Spinjitzu master, and I'm not entirely sure who the other two potentially are. Just let me know in the comments if you do know, but I personally don't know which one is which in that, except, you know, Sensei Wu. Then over here, you can see there is another sticker back there. It does have some kind of printed writing back there. I'm not entirely sure what language it could be. My biggest guess is Mandarin potentially, but I just don't know enough about the language to know for sure. We do have this gong build back here with the little drumstick on the side, so you can use that to hit this piece right here. You know, that's pretty cool as well. And then going to the right side here, you have kind of the same thing as the left side. The panels in the back with the dragons, of course, those are nice. Then we have the lighting here on the right. And then the thing that just doesn't make sense to me is this plant just being here in the center of this area. It just doesn't make sense at all. Instead of that, I think I would have preferred some type of dummy for training or something like that instead of this kind of weirdly placed foliage. From there, we make our way to the second level. There's not really much going on here. You can see there's barely any footing on the left and then the right side over here for minifigures to stand. They can stand there, but it's not any type of good footing for them at least. Then we have the center area. So here you can see we have the elemental blades. We have the ice blade, the fire blade, the lightning blade, and then the earth blade. The only weird thing is you don't really get any ninjas in this set to hold those blades. These blades are just in this set. So, you know, if you're collecting all the blades, maybe this is one way to go, but I would have preferred to have had at least a couple ninjas, maybe one or two, just to hold those blades and not just have them there as decor. Other than that though, the space up here is just open space, which is perfectly fine, but it is again very simple. And then finally from there, you move to the very top of the temple where you do have these sticker pieces, which are on these pieces here hanging like banners, which adds much needed detail to the very top here and is nice. And then again, you have the dish pieces up here and the molded dragons in gold up here, which are very nice as well. From there, I wanted to show the two play features that come with this build. One is a transformative play feature. So if you can see here on the left and right side by these kind of beams here, you can see there is some hinges on the bottom and top, and that is true for both sides, as you can see. So what you can do is you can close both of these sides and then make the temple feel more like a building versus being out in the open, which is pretty nice. And I think this feels a little bit better than it being open for me personally. And for the next play feature, I just think it's better for me to show you than try to explain what can happen here. And all you have to do is there is a lever back here and you pull it and it hits the minifigure that is in that general vicinity, as you can see. And this is a very simple mechanism. If I spin this around here, you can get a better idea of how it works. All that happens is you pull this to the right here, and then you can see potentially there on it right here, you can see that it kind of just drops it and then picks it back up. Nothing crazy. And then if you want to see it from the other side, or from the underside, I should say, you can see how the mechanism works right there. It's just a lever system essentially, nothing crazy, but it does get the job done and adds a little bit of playability to the actual set without taking from the look of it in this general area. So again, here's everything you get in set 70505, Temple of Light, containing 565 pieces. The set retailed for $70 US and released in 2013. Now, while I do personally like this set, I do think it is missing a couple of things and lacking in other places as well. First, talking about the mech, I think the mech is perfectly fine. I do think it is lacking in terms of the articulation going forward for the legs, and then the kind of twist at the torso area. That could be a little bit better, but I think it's still very good for the scale especially. And then the minifigure department, I think one more stone armyman would have been nice, just to give it more of an army feel in the long run for the entire wave of sets here. Then moving on to the actual Temple of Light build, I do think this is a part where the build, or the set I should say, is lacking the most. And I think that the main reason why I think that the actual Temple of Light build is lacking is because it doesn't feel as important as it did in the show. And yes, I do know that the sets do come before the actual show, but there has to be a level of importance that is included in these sets for us to kind of place a little bit of importance on purchasing some sets. For example, there's just a lot of stuff missing that could have been added as Easter eggs, such as the location on the ground where Lloyd stands, when he gets the essentially golden powers, or any of the images on the walls of essentially Ninjago being told from the past, and then them coming upon these walls and it telling, you know, the ninja that it was kind of like a prophecy for them to run into all these issues, like with the Great Devourer, finding the Destiny Bounty, stuff like that. So I just feel like the actual temple build is severely lacking in terms of both kind of details and then scale as well, because the temple is a lot bigger than what we see here. But you know, that's just kind of what happens when something like this is produced first and then a show comes after, or I guess the writing potentially comes after, right? But in the end, I do still think it's a good set. Maybe not worth entirely the $69.99 that it was back then, but the set itself is good. And I do quite enjoy it. But again, that's going to conclude my review of set 70505, the Temple of Light. If you guys enjoyed the video, consider liking the video. And if you are enjoying the content and are not subscribed, consider subscribing. It is completely free, helps me out in the long run. And as always, I will see you guys in my next video.